fits better, fits you guys. And the thing is, they both have the same city skills.
Share them to our Facebook page.
Yeah, no, I think
I think that we would get a lot of
This turned up?
I think
I mean, you want the
outreach.
speakers.
speakers into this one?
No, because that goes into the
Mrs. Kroll? Here. Mr. Miles?
Here.
Mr. Trimmer?
Here.
Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this time, we have a board discussion. We started it last month, and I had some stuff on one-on-one boardsmanship, and Mr. Miles is carrying through tonight with some further discussion on that. Just to try to enlighten our staff plus our residents on the functions of their school board. We will be having next month the reorganization of officers, so at that time, if we want to continue this, we will do that. So at this time, Mr. Miles, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. My little segment here comes from chapter 2, but I'd like to just give a little appreciation and respect here to the gentleman here that is very well known in this community. So a little backstory here. I officiated high school basketball for 10 years, so I'd like to, again, give a whole lot of appreciation and respect to the man of this community who invested in me during those years. I can remember having one conversation in particular with the late Joe Pangrazio Sr., who I leaned on for developing a solid foundation in my officiating career. Joe says to me that day, "Stevie, officiating is all about ankles. So until you are able to walk a day in the other officials' shoes and see as they are seeing at the time they make their call, you will never know why or how they made the call that they did." That has stuck with me ever since. And yes, sometimes I fall short on that. We all do. But please understand that a call made, no matter what it pertains to in life, may not always be the right call at the time. Sometimes our line of sight or lack of information is blocking us from making the right call. So ask yourself sometime, what's blocking my view? Or do I even have the best angle to make the call? I'd like to get into chapter 2 as quick as I can on an effective board member and what an effective board member is. So once a person has met the qualifications, been properly nominated, duly elected, and officially sworn in, his or her real job begins. No one can know, again, no one can know the various pressure, politics, and satisfaction of such a position until he or she has served on the Board of Education. We often hear that one person is a good board member or another is a not so good member, I'll say. Yet, we seldom hear of a clear definition of what constitutes an effective board member. In reality, there are about as many philosophical theories about boardmanship as there are board members. However, there are some widely accepted guidelines. Members must recognize that seldom do two people react to the same problem in any identical manner, so flexibility is advised. An effective board member avoids administrative decisions or attempts to second-guess the administration. The superintendent is the chief executive officer, and the treasurer is the chief financial officer in the district. The board has no administrative function. An effective board member is flexible and realizes there are times when changes must be made, traditions cannot be honored, and pressure must be ignored. An effective board member is interested in obtaining facts, but remembers that the administration is responsible for operating the school rather than spending a majority of its time making reports to the board or individual board members. An effective board member also knows that the reputation of the entire school district is reflected on his or her behavior and attitude. An effective board member is able to support all decisions made by a majority of the full board, even in those situations where they cast an individual no vote. And final bullet point here is an effective board member makes decisions based on the district's current visions, missions, and goals.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, I'd like to welcome Colin. He's on Zoom. Welcome to our meeting. I apologize not doing that at the start there, Colin. Okay, I'm going to entertain a motion that we go into an executive session. Do I have a second?
I'll move. Or did you move? Okay, then I'll
Need a
second.
second.
Sorry.
Okay, the motion was made by Beckley, seconded by Mrs. Sproul. Do we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Beckley?
Yes.
Mrs. Sproul? Yes. Mr. Fawcett?
Yes.
Mr. Miles?
Yes.
And Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Motion carried at 5:36. Employment. Letter D, conducting, reviewing negotiation and bargaining session. And letter E, matters required to be kept confidential by federal law. At this time, we will go into an executive session.
Good to go again. Since you're good to go.
Are you ready? Okay. At 7:09 PM, we're out of executive session. Roll call, please.
Do you need a motion?
Yeah, I need a motion to go back into regular. Mrs. Kroll. Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Kroll,
Yes.
Mr. Miles,
Yes.
Mr. Beckley,
Yes.
Mr. Fawcett,
Yes.
and Mr. Turner.
Yes. And we'll start 7:09. Okay, administrative reports, Buckeye Career Center.
Okay, I don't have a lot to report, just basically, Buckeye School, we're still in a blended schedule. Same obstacles as a lot of districts right now, working through multiple quarantines with staff and students, but still trying to get that lab instruction, just because everything's so hands-on there. We did offer a virtual tour for Buckeye on the 10th, and there is 75 total applicants considering Buckeye Career Center for next year at this point. So that's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you. The Business Advisory.
The Business Advisory Council met 2 weeks ago, and we have our plan that was submitted to the department, our department. We brought in 3 new members, Kim Nathan, a registered nurse who serves 2 roles, Business Development Director at Cleveland Clinic Union Hospital in Dover, and she's also working at Dover City Schools. Justin Hickenbottom, General Manager for Newtown Mall, he's a new member, and AJ Smith, a Civil Engineer for Hall Associates in St. Clairsville. We did review our plan, and the biggest thing that we were looking at is I think the last meeting we talked about Business Advisory, the mentors that were part of, there's one in East Guernsey, one in Cambridge, and there's one in Cover Belmont. They're going to try to get a mentor for Tuscarawas County through some grants. But COVID's kind of put some restrictions on the amount of tours that they're able to get for our students to attend at like the Buckeye or other businesses such as Allen Machine, but the next meeting is until February.
Okay. Principals reports. I think everybody received those.
Yes, I think you got a copy of Ms. Khan's report this morning, or this afternoon when we came.
Any discussion on that? If not, I'd like to thank the principals for sending them in for our meeting. And we'll go to Mr. Henry.
Move forward.
Thank you.
Okay, this is, one of the things that we're trying to attack, of course it's on our grade card, is the attendance. So I've been going, I went and met with another local school to see what they were doing. And they showed me this program that I brought back to Mr. Wrench, and kind of asked him if we could possibly look into purchasing this, and he did. He stuck his neck out for me, and he did. COVID is really ruining it, but I just wanted to show this to you and kind of explain it and some of the ideas that we have, what we want to maybe possibly implement next year. Now, this first page, now keep in mind, this is what I would pull up on my computer. So every day, first thing I do in the mornings, I come in, I would pull this program up, and this is the first page that I would see, is the one you're looking at here. Okay, and this it explains a little bit here. This is chronic absenteeism, which obviously right now, this was, I believe it was last week when I made these. It's down to about 25.4 right now. So it's went down a little bit. But this kind of gives us a gauge when I come in and I see this, and this, of course, this isn't where we want it to be. So then I try to figure out why we have this, how can I attack this, and those kinds of things. So you notice there over in the left-hand box where it says Students 119. So what I would do is I'd click on that, okay? And then what would come up would be the next page that you have in here. And the reason I can't show you is because it has student names. So this sheet here would come up, and you see down here at the bottom, last name, first name, these are all students that we have in our building. So this is telling me, you know, our rate is 26.9%. What it was last year was 11.5, which was pretty good, but you got to remember we weren't in school all basically the last quarter. And it gives us the two previous years as well. So, and this is hooked up to our DAZZLE program, so it kind of goes hand in hand. So what I would do in a normal year, this year it's really obviously difficult with COVID. I would go, you see where the first person would be, it has 2,900 hours for that student to reach at 90%. That is our goal, our objective, for these students to be able to graduate where they're supposed to, according to the state. They have to have a 90% attendance rate. So what this program does, it lists it obviously from the most, from the highest, all the way down to the lowest. So in a typical year, what I would do, if you would go all the way to the very back page, okay, this is where I would go first. So I go to this back page. Now you see the very last line, it has a student at 0.8 hours. Okay, then it goes 2.7, and then it jumps to 11.2. Those last couple, I wouldn't worry too much about, because when they come back the next day, it would probably, like this 0.8, it would probably take that person off of it. So the students that I would focus on is about 10 hours and above. So all these students right here is who I would try to attack first. Okay? And then, of course, that person that's up to, matter of fact, that person's gone. It's on that first line, he withdrew. So what I would do is I would try to go to these students, and I would attack these students first, okay, to get them back up to that 90%. Now, the plan, and this is something we have to have discussions about how we're going to do this, but what I would like to do is these students, I would come to them and say, hey, you're 11 hours short. You need to make these hours up. So I would have them in your folder. This is the part. Now the next page, I'll get to that, okay, real quick. If I would go over here on a particular student and click over there where it says Edge 2, that would pull up that individual students. That's the next page that you have there. So that page is like three pages deep into the computer program. So it would get specific with that individual student. Okay, so it would tell me current year, this is his attendance rate, what he was last year, what he was 2 years ago. So that can kind of give me a gauge on that individual student. Okay, so let's see what the next page is. Okay, so if you can look at the next page. This is something, again, this is something that we have to, I need to talk with Mr. Ranch and talk with the other principals and kind of look at it. But what we would like to do is, okay, so Eric Henry needs to make up 10 hours. So I would go to him and say, listen, you need to make up 10 hours and give them, assign them to our intervention plan, which is the last page that you have there. I'm going to assign you to intervention school. So after school, they would go for 3 hours to make up 3 hours. And then we would, of course, take that off of the 10 hours or whatever they have. So I could assign them so they could make up those hours at this after-school intervention school, so to speak. Another thing that we discussed is, and this is what the other school does as well, any athlete, anyone that's in a club, play, band, anything along those lines, if they end up on this list, they can't participate until they make up those hours. So, I mean, we're holding the athletes and everyone else to a little bit higher standard. A lot of these students on this list might not be active in anything. It's just, unfortunately, that's kind of how it is. But, it's a privilege to be in sport and all the other activities. So, just holding them to a higher standard, so to speak. So, this portion here, this page here, is what we would have to add to the student handbook. Okay, we would have to get this approved in the student handbook. Of course, another hurdle that we're faced with right now, I can do this with the Friday school program, but that's 1 day a week. So, most of these students, I couldn't assign them to 1 day a week, and it's not going to affect this. What I would like to do, and again, it's something I have to discuss with Mr. Wrench, how we can do it through grants, things like that, is to pay a teacher to sit there Monday through Thursday, 3 hours a night. That's what the other school does. They have Monday through Thursday, and that's some type of grant. And we'll have to look into that. But they've had great success with it. Of course, their athletes down there, they can't do it, but they don't participate. So it keeps those kids in line. And one of the things that we have too, we have an attendance and we have a tardy issue as well. So that would help eliminate that also. I mean, that's the goal. Now, as far as the rest, this year, we're going to kind of, we have to tweak it a little bit because we're so far into the year, and the COVID is really, it's really hampered what we wanted to do with it. I convinced Mr. Ranch, and he went to bat for me, and then the COVID things really, really hurt. But the idea would be, next school year, when this rolls out, I can start getting these students right away, as opposed to now, with everything that's kind of how it's played out, it's a little bit more difficult to do that. But that's kind of the idea. It really streamlines the attendance. It really makes it visible for me to see and keep track of who I need to really, we have I have an attendance team at school, so, I could assign some of these kids to our attendance team members, and they can, just go to them and kind of mentor them, hey, what's going on, that type of stuff. To reach out to, because kids are more apt to open up to maybe them as opposed to me, because I'm the one who deals with discipline and, things like that. So, be kind of looking at this and messing with it. I really believe that it'll help. Again, when I can get a good grasp of it, unfortunately, that couldn't be until next year when it starts, starts rolling out, and I can really attack these students when it does become, that type of issue. But this is one of the things that we're working on. Like I said, the last 2 pages, this is something, and again, we kind of need to iron out, some of the stuff. But this is an example of what we would have to put into our student handbook. And then this is an example of, a sheet that I would say, hey, Eric, here you go. You're assigned to this. You got to meet 90%, and get them in there, get them below, or up to rather that 90%.
So high school's piloting this, more planning to pilot it and go all the way down through?
Yeah, it really is. It's more, it really helps me out a lot, and Michelle, at the middle school, it would help her out a lot. You know, I don't know the attendance rate of if they have that much of an issue. Now, with them though, you know, maybe Mr. Seibert will have a student, I'm sure he does, with the chronic absenteeism, but he couldn't assign him you know, the after-school thing.
No, but there's different ways they can make up hours, like if they come in early.
Right.
They give up some recess time, because that's not counted as student hours. So, you know, those are different avenues that they can make up time.
Right.
You kind of, on Wednesday, we're going to be talking with the administrative team about pursuing the 21st Century Grant. The 21st Century Grant would be used for after-school programming. They would pay staff members to, you know, some different variety of different programs. It might be computers, it might be web design, it might be, you know, AutoCAD, it could be art. So whatever programming is available, but also there's tutorial. And if you're involved in that, and if we did get that grant, those kids could make up that time, but that would be his avenue for 5 or 4 days a week. But it's interesting when we first got this program, that the 3-year trend, there's a couple kids that, one in particular, had an attendance rate of like 98% 2 years ago. And now their attendance rate is like 83%. It's not signing in, doing their work remotely, is really what's hurting their attendance rate currently.
Mm-hmm.
But that kid, this one in particular, you know, the attendance rate was so high 2 years prior until this year. You know, so like what Mr. Henry said, starting with the kids that are really close, but as Barney Fife would say on Andy Griffith, if you start at the beginning of the year and you nip it in the bud early, you're not going to have that kid that has almost 3,000 hours to make up to get to 90%. And then right now, there's no way possible, really, other than coming in on teacher professional development days and make up 6 hours. Could be another avenue, or at the end of the summer, making up hours. But it's getting those kids earlier now, because it is a report card benchmark.
So just on that, with the COVID, I know we're taking attendance, you know, every given day, so is the hours out of the question, is just as long as you're hitting the attendance thing, then that's covering it, or? Okay.
Yeah, as long as they're...
Has that been eliminated for this year?
Right.
The hours?
Right, as long as they're clicking that they're in doing their work,
Okay.
you know, that kind of takes care of the whole, that whole stop. It's like first period, you're signing in, and attendance taken, click. And if somebody actually leaves physically during the day, when we're face to face, then they're signed down, and then the secretary make those mark, left at 10:10, the rest, and then they lost the rest of those hours for that day. So,
Yeah, the hours are still there. I mean, we're still required by the state, even though we're on remote, we still have to do attendance.
Right.
You know, so my job's kind of flipped from discipline, you know, which I did this before, but, you know, now obviously the kids aren't in there. We still have kids that, so what I'll do is I'll try to cross-reference, you know, because I'll get my list from Brendan, the secretary. I look at it, and there's a kid, I'll look at his grades, well, they forgot to click the button, so I'm not gonna, you know, put them on an attendance plan, you know, for that, but, you know, we really think this will help us.
yeah, and it would be, like you said, hitting the co-curriculars and extracurriculars, is that if your attendance rate drops, you won't be able to participate. That makes it, you have those kids that are actually coming to school, holding the people accountable.
Right. Coaches aren't gonna like it, but I'm a coach. I gotta deal with it also, but, you know, getting them here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody had Jody's report, so we'll go to Mr. Rim.
Yeah. In your board packet, I gave you a Fortis, and it's a student mental health case management for districts. In the long run, or short run, I'm thinking that it's, Ohio Guidestone would be able to fund it for the first year. And then the Adams Board, the United Way, would be looking at particularly helping out. But it is a database of resources available for parents that they can have 24/7 access for resources. But they could also then look at scheduling appointments with the school counselors. We would look at, village network being a part of that, and being able to schedule appointments through this or our other agencies that we have, are working with. I had Mrs. Monticelli attended a meeting with me, on Zoom with this. We're going to do another follow-up at a later date with more information. There's supposed to be a demo site that the council can try. Mrs. Monticelli was very excited about the possibility, but if this did go through, Ohio Guidestone will pay for the first year. And then after that, we'd be looking for grant funding through maybe Adams Board, United Way. But this was Jody Salvo was the one that brought this to my attention. And as I said, Mrs. Monticelli liked this one because it's a one-stop shop for parents and also accessing information, and also the teachers or the counselors can pull that information up too accordingly. Jumping to another item, enrollment. From, I put in the board packet, primary 234, elementary 251, intermediate 289, middle school 417, high school 552, a total of 1815. Last month we were 1828. The biggest difference was elementary between last month and this month, and that's about 19 students. And the intermediate we actually gained 2 students that are intermediate, gained 3 at the middle school, high school stayed the same, and we actually gained 1, but the elementary is the one that had the most decrease from last month to this month. And I'm not sure why, where all those students went.
Can we get an update on
I'm sorry?
that? Can we get like an update on that?
Yeah, I can see who and why they left. And it's a decent, that's a drastic number of kids. Had an email from Lisa Walker. Lisa works with Tough Bags at the Tuscarawas County Juvenile Court. And her email just says, "Hello, Mr. Wrench. I just wanted to take a moment to tell you how wonderful your staff is. The aides, bus drivers, and teachers who come pick up, process, and sometimes even deliver Tough Bags are simply incredible. I could not do this program without the support of the school staff. And Jody has been incredible help coordinating during this unusual school year." And it says, "I'm sure you don't always hear enough good news, so I want to make sure that I show my appreciation to them and how great they are. They truly care about their students." So I want to echo that and pass that along, and I will pass that along to also the staff members, but I want to share that here at our board meeting also. So I want to thank our members. I know that principals have actually been delivering Tough Bags when they don't get picked up. Secretaries and counselors and everything. So I know we had people who were interested in how to get Tough Bags. Lastly, I think, and Kim and I can kind of talk about the school funding plan. It's been through the House, and I think it was 88 to 8 or 81 to 8. Went through. It was in the Senate the last I had conversations, and it was kind of stalling at that point. They were hoping to get through the lame duck. Just as I said, the last board meeting, this passes is enrollment driven. So how much money the state is allocating is based off enrollment. So they will pay us for what we educate. we won't be paying or losing money for open enrollment because all that money will automatically go to that other school. We will only receive dollars for who we have. So we're over $1 million this year in lost open enrollment. Last year was like 900,000, but we would only get that funding for what we have. So it would increase school funding to, per child, $7,024 from the current 6,000 some it has, but there's a factor that goes into all that. We would, if this does pass, and as I said at the last board meeting, it's the most equitable school funding formula that I kind of have seen in all the years, and how it's basically who you have in your seats and who they will pay for. But it's also driven off of how much can your community support with their local revenue, and that would be through the taxes as far as property or income tax, depending on that. So this would be a phase-in if it does pass. And it won't be just the biennial budget that comes back out on July 1st. This wouldn't be automatic. And if this does pass, the student wellness dollars that we currently receive will be withdrawn as this is phased. So we would be looking at receiving potentially roughly $1.2 million. We receive currently $900-some thousand in student wellness. So we have a treasurer to do the math, but that's about $300,000 difference to the good for us. So we need to be continually making wise choices. I think Kim, with her presentation last month, talked about where we are deficit spending moving forward. So I don't know if you want to elaborate any more on this plan and the forecast, or...
Well, just to reiterate, like Ms. Brent said, that it will be enrollment driven, so our student-teacher ratio will be being looked at because of that, because there will be a formula to decide how many teachers are paid for, or we would receive money for from the state per how many students are in that grade level. So just being conscious of our student-teacher ratios is going to be a big thing if this passes. And at the current, well, I'll just jump, like for my November, I'll just go ahead and do that right now. So we still did deficit spend in November, $381,288. This is normal. We see this time of year because we won't see our next property tax receipts until, I can start requesting advances next month, but then we will see it in February. So our general fund total now is at $5,476,000. So just to reiterate that a little bit more.
Yeah, so with the school funding plan and where we are as far as our student enrollment, I think it'd be wise of us, it behooves us to take a look at where our 5-year forecast is. And we've looked at reductions last year. It would behoove us to be able to look at those reductions again moving forward. So just throwing that out there for conversation, and just letting everybody aware of where we are financially.
Well, I'd like to just make a comment on the 5-year forecast, and thank you, Kim, for doing an outstanding job on presenting that, and I know you presented it to the teachers also. Okay, but my concern is for our fiscal year of '22, if we don't take a look at our spending, we're going to be 1.8 deficit if we don't do any reductions. That's for the fiscal year of '22. So we definitely need to take a look at this and to put it on record that we can't have this big of a deficit. We've got to get our 5-year forecast in line. And eventually the board will have to to do something to get that in line. But again, the fiscal year of '22, if we do nothing, we're gonna be 1.8 million deficit. So we need to consider that. Okay. Any questions for Kim or Brian? Okay, Kim, are you finished?
Yep.
Brian?
Yeah, I just want to go into commendation then. if we didn't-
Go right ahead.
Moving on with the agenda then, commendation for stadium project. Gary Kimball and his Dutch Valley Industries, they had an in-kind donation of $130,000 for the work of taking apart the old bleachers, hauling them away and disposing them. So an in-kind donation of $130,000. We received a donation today from Robert Archer of $100,000 for the stadium. He's a former graduate, I think, of Uritzville, but he's has helped our program of $100,000. Had an anonymous donor of $1,000 who wanted to give it in honor of Don and Helen Wright. Flex Technologies up in the Midville-ish area, $2,500. Patricia Cameron, class of 1979, $25. Steve and Shelley Hasselman, $50. Butch and Marla Watkins, $150. That's Jeff Wright. He's had a locker sponsorship of $20. The Paul Prepper Foundation for Project Lead the Way of $2,714.29. And Uritzville Eagles to help Mr. Baldwin's cyber club. They've given him $2,500 so he can produce the Mustang minutes that he's been working on with the students to produce the Mustang minutes. So I want to thank all those people for their donations.
Okay. Thank you. Any addendum on it?
I do, to add, what we're going to add for the motion is second, to add Melody Foster Schweitzer for retirement. And she'll be under item C. The motion second to add the addendum.
I'll make that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call?
Mr. Bentley?
Yes.
Mrs. Sproul?
Yes.
Mr. Fawcett?
Yeah.
Mr. Miles?
Yes.
And Mr. Trimmer?
Motion carried. Any items to be pulled separately? If not, we'll move on to the treasurer's report.
Just need a first and a second motion to accept the financial report for the month of November as presented, the payment of bills as presented, and the minutes of the regular board meeting from November 16th.
Entertain a motion to accept the treasurer's report. Mr. Trimmer, do we have a second? I'll second that. Roll call.
Mr. Trimmer?
Yes.
Mr. Bentley?
Yes.
Mr. Fawcett? Mrs. Sproul?
Yes.
And Mr. Miles?
Yes. Motion carried. Superintendent?
Okay, motion second to approve the following items. Appoint Robert Michaels for a 7-year term for the Claymont Public Library beginning January 1st, 2020, and to end December 31st, 2027. Amend the non-athletic supplementals to reflect mentor teachers. I think I had them listed as resident educator. Kelsey Barnhart, mentor teacher, year 1. For Sydney Burns, April Price, Nicely for Brittany Montanez and Ian Miser, Travis Lawton. It doesn't change who they were working with, it's just reflecting mentor teacher. Accept a resignation for retirement purpose for the following people. I want to congratulate them. Susan Baumgartner. Susan's going to retire from the preschool aide effective April 1st, and she said no fooling. So congratulations to Susan. Sue Clark is going to retire effective May 29th as an intervention specialist at the elementary. And Melody Foster Schweitzer, she's going to retire May 29th also, and she's a second grade teacher. So congratulations to those folks. Reduction in force for the following, effective December 7th, Brandy LeGleese and Sarah McPherson. Brandy was a bus driver and Sarah was a bus aide. That student is no longer attending the school that needs to be for extra transportation. Approve the following supplemental contracts for the 2021-2022 fall sports. Eric Henry, head football. Tom Lasecki, assistant. John McCluskey, assistant. Ed Henry, equipment manager. Abby Mass, volleyball head. Lindsay Hummel, JV volleyball. Adam Rogers, head cross country. Mark Outlaw, assistant cross country. Eric Peterson, junior high cross country. Rich Struven, girls tennis. Scott Buxton, girls golf, and John McCluskey, fall weightlifting. Approve the following winter ticker takers. Courtney Beckley, ticker taker scoreboard. John Albert scoreboard. We have a substitute for certified, to be Abby Wineland. I'll say this, Abby's also our athletic trainer, and she has time that she can actually substitute also for us, and we've actually put her to use already. Courtney Beckley is a substitute for educational aide and secretary, and I just need a motion and a second to approve those items.
Okay, entertain a motion to accept the superintendent's report. Okay, Mrs. Vaughn. Do we have a second? Mr. Strunk. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Kroll,
Yes.
Mr. Trimmer,
Yes.
Mr. Beckley,
Yes.
Mr. Fawcett, and Mr. Miles.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. Okay, we'll go into the organization meeting for 2021. We need, we're going to set the organization meeting for 2021, January 11th at 5:15 at the central office. And right after that, our regular meeting will start at 5:30. So we need a motion to do that, and a motion for the President Pro Tem. Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
Mrs. Kroll,
Yes.
Mr. Miles,
Yes.
Mr. Beckley,
Yes.
Mr. Fawcett, and Mr. Trimmer. He's saying yes, so I.
Yeah, he is.
He's on.
Yeah.
His microphone.
Hey, we need another motion for, to elect the President Pro Tem. Okay. Who do you
I'm
want?
going to nominate Mr. Beckley.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Second, Mr. Trimmer. Roll call.
Mrs. Kroll,
Yes.
Mr. Trimmer,
Yes.
Mr. Beckley,
Yes.
you vote or
Yes.
abstain? Okay.
I better abstain.
Yeah. And Mr. Fawcett, and Mr. Miles.
Yes.
Okay. I think we got that covered, right?
This would be, that was to open nominations, and this would be to close nominations,
Yeah.
so now that they're closed. And then the next one would be to make you President Pro Tem for the,
Okay.
I know there's a lot of Robert Rules of Order.
Yeah, for sure.
I apologize.
We need a motion to close the.
I'll move.
We have a second. Okay,
Who's second?
I think Mr. Mel.
Okay.
Okay. All right, roll call.
Mrs. Kroll,
Yes.
Mr. Miles,
Yes.
Mr. Beckley,
Abstain.
Mr. Fawcett, and Mr. Trimmer.
Yes.
Okay, now we need another motion
To appoint.
and a second to appoint Mr. Beckley as the President Pro Tem for the organization meeting.
I'll move.
Mrs. Kroll. Second, Mr. Trimmer. Roll call.
Mrs. Kroll,
Yes.
Mr. Trimmer?
Yes.
Mr. Beckley?
Abstain.
Mr. Fawcett? And Mr. Miles?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you, people. Okay, anything under new business? Anybody have anything under new business?
I just, one under committee, but stadium committee, want to report a little bit about our, I know we just received some donations, but where we were, last meeting, or they're putting in sewer lines, water lines, basically all of our picking out the colors and all that stuff has been done. We're just looking at, next steps as far as keeping on pace. The foundation, the building itself should be started the second week in January. I think you said Wood Electric was there today running electric.
Right.
So, so it's coming along pretty quickly, as expected. But this is coming from the permanent improvement levy that we passed back in the spring of 2020. So that's how we were able to secure those funds. Also securing those funds help us start that roof at the high school. So they have the section over the cafeteria, looks like it's completed. They're still working on a couple other sections, but before Christmas, that whole, I would say call it the non-academic wing or whatever, is supposed to be under roof with the new metal. And then they'll do the metal over the academic section. Is supposed to start in the early summer. So it's in 2 phases. So they're moving along pretty well. We haven't had too many leaks. Just a few.
Like, I know we had a lot of leaks over the choir room, is that in the first, portion?
That should all be done, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had leaks since they've actually been starting the roof, because of, pitch points or something, I'm not sure how, but then they've come out, pretty quickly and rectified the situation.
Okay.
So we had a ball game, I don't know, last week or 2 weeks ago. It was the Monday after Thanksgiving, and it was raining, and we got a hold of them at 1 o'clock, and they were there, and we still had our freshman ball game at 5. So, but that project's coming along, and also the stadium project's coming along. So it'll be nice to have some new freshness of the roof and also the stadium.
Okay, and before we adjourn, I'd just like to echo Mr. Wrench's statement there that in April that residents of the Claymont District did pass the 5 mil levy for operation and improvements to our facility. Both projects right now are moving along fairly well. And again, on behalf of the board and myself, we'd like to thank our Claymont District for passing our levy, because none of the monies that's going to our projects is coming out of our general fund. So I know maybe somebody thinks that a lot of that's coming out of the general fund, but it's not. It's coming out of that 5 mil levy that was passed back in April. The board also wishes everyone a safe and healthy Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Our organization meeting will be January 11th at 5:15 at the central office. And if there's nothing else, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, everybody wants to stay?
He moved.
Okay, Mr. Trimmer, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Miles. Roll call, please.
Mr. Trimmer?
Yes.
Mr. Miles?
Yes.
Mr. Beckley?
Yes.
Mr. Fawcett? And Mrs. Short?
Yes.
Oh, and thank you for being with us tonight. And the board's adjourned at 7:04.